Well, just 2 years ago in 2011, we sat there at 10% planted. At least we got some planted early in April, and then the first 2 weeks of May we got most of the crop planted. The problem right now as we look at the weather forecast is that it doesn't look like it's going to happen that fast, and we need warm and dry both coming in and staying here for a while. So far that's not really in the forecast, and so it's not, the biggest problem is not that we don't have much planted right now, it's that looking ahead it looks like progress is going to continue to be slow for a while. We do have to put this into perspective. If you look at what's happened in the past, early planting doesn't assure high yields and late planting doesn't assure low yields. So it's a little bit, it's always a difficult thing to call what the effect of this is going to be. If we can still make good progress and get planted, mostly planted by the middle or 20th of May, we're still not going to be in too bad a shape. As we were showed last year very clearly, what happens during the seasons, particularly June, July, August, is a lot more important than when we get planted. And so certainly we haven't ruled out the chance of a good crop by this late start. We certainly haven't guaranteed ourselves a poor crop, nor have we shown that we're going to get a good crop. But if we get good rainfall during the season, I think we will get a good crop yet this year. Will it be a record breaker? If you look back at our highest yields we've ever had, it's a real mixed how they start the season. So it's what happens again during the middle of the season that makes the most difference. If you look at the research that we've done, we have tried to make estimates of the effect of delayed planting on yields, and it accelerates as we move through May. Today, you know, we're down at only a few tenths of a percent per day of delay. So by the time we get the first third of May, I think we calculated at about 0.5% per day. The second third about 0.7 of a percent, and then the third about 0.9 of a percent. And if you look at the cumulative effect of that, it looks scarier then, that we're looking at, you know, maybe 15% cumulative loss if we get to the 20th of May and about 25% cumulative loss if we get to the end of May. Well, nobody expects us to, you know, plant into June, although it certainly has happened before. I guess the way I would put it, the longer we go, the more unlikely it is that the season will be so favorable that it'll get us to high yields or as high a yields as we would have had if we could have started on time. Now, on the other side of it, April was not a very kind month, and the little bit of crop that we did get planted there in the first week of April, just managing to struggle up now, and where it's been really wet and with water standing on the field, some of that may not make it at all. So it's not like getting it planted all a month ago would have given us some great advantage here. And we do know from experience that early May can be a good time to plant. So we hope that it breaks free and lets us get started.
Producers will want to move into the field quickly, but you advise, generally speaking, against that.
Well, we just have to use our common sense. It's never a really great thing to mud corn in, but I suppose, in fairness, by the time we get to, say, late May or something, the sort of what have we got to lose sets in, and we might be out there sort of mudding it in and going around the wet spots and this sort of thing. I think that's kind of, I call that the time to do desperate things, and we're certainly not there yet. One of the questions will be, if we get some good drying days, it's going to look dry over the surface. Of course, we're all going to know that it isn't dry very far down. Our soil temperatures really haven't reached the point yet where they're going to dry quickly to any depth below just the top surface when we get some wind and some higher temperatures. So it will dry eventually, but the temptation now is going to be to go out there and do what we have to help ourselves pretend that we're doing a good job of planting. You know, if you could go out there with a tillage implement and it really would be too wet, then it's probably too wet to plant as well. Now, we do have some people that had acreage ready to plant back 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they might want to go out with stale seed bed. But the same thing still applies. Going out when the soil's too wet is going to cause compaction. If we could keep that compaction to between the rows, we get a little bit of an advantage. But even putting the seed in a furrow, opening a furrow, is a compacting operation if the soils are too wet. And so we're all going to be better off if we can afford to wait until it's dry enough to really go and then hit it hard and plant fast.
Compaction then is a concern. Does it matter very much what the weather is like after the fact?
Well, it matters a great deal. In fact, compaction probably hurts us very little, if any, if we have wet seasons, wet growing seasons. The biggest problem with compaction is that it can restrict root growth. And in our soils, the roots don't have to be out extensively in the soil to pick up enough moisture if we continue to get good rainfall. If we have another year like we had last year where rainfall becomes really a limitation, then any compaction we do at this point is going to hurt us even more.